It's Thursday! Yay! Ta-da!
Favorite hour.
Favorite hour of the week with Ollie Mammon. Hey, the thing is this, the only way I can work my way in this crazy life that we're leading, right, is that Sunday's line of duty, Monday is Unforgotten, Thursday is Ollie Mammon, the ABC of CBD. That's the only way I can work this out. Welcome along. I'm Russ Kane, what's left of him. This is Men's Radio Station broadcasting, and you can find us on Twitter, on YouTube, on our own YouTube channel. If you go onto the YouTube channel, smash the subscribe button, as they say in America. Please do that. It would be great. We'd love to have you along. You can get us on Facebook. You're on my Facebook and Ollie's Facebook. Blooming everywhere. And if you miss the show, or if you have to go and have a cup of tea, or you have to leave, go onto our YouTube channel and you can see any of the shows any time you like. Enough from me. I'm just a passenger here. Welcome along. And now we hand it over to the host.
I think that's actually I think that was the perfect time for Russ to cut out. Kind of brilliant.
Oh man, this is just unbelievable. I'm having a horrible internet because I've just got the world's worst internet and I'm in the middle of London. It's pathetic. Anyway, Ollie, over to you, my friend.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 26 on this beautiful, I think it's the last Thursday of March, isn't it? So everyone, happy last Thursday of March. Welcome to spring. Okay, yeah. Well, so over 8 weeks, we've been focusing on growing and producing cannabinoids for the UK market. We didn't actually play our advert last week, so I'm just going to go and play that straight away, and then I'm going to do the introduction just to get it out of the way. So advert. I'm sure you've heard before that good quality CBD needs to be really, really expensive. This is the new view of CBD, a product created by users for users, a product at an affordable price, available everywhere at any time at the simple click of a button. Just CBD and MCT oil, no additives, no preservatives, and no flavor enhancers. It's a simple subscription-based service, the cleanest possible CBD delivered to your door for the lowest possible price. Your product, your rights for the lowest possible price.
Still the coolest advert on the planet. I love it. It's just the coolest advert on the planet. By the way, Mr. Ollie Mammon, before we crack on, just to say that we have listeners, welcome to everybody, but you have listeners, Oliver Mammon, in Kenya, Germany, America, Spain, and of course across the UK. So
I just can't believe we got someone from Kenya. That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
That's incredible. Yeah. Oh my God, I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
I know they love the show out in Kenya.
I love that.
It's a very interesting and very amusing guy who lives there. Anyway, here we are.
I just want to say thank you to everyone who's tuned in, everyone who's listened over the last few weeks, anyone who's reached out. Thank you so much. I mean, it really means a lot, and I've really had a lot of fun doing this, guys. And please God, we do it for many, many more weeks. Episode 26. What? Incredible. Yeah. So episode 26.
Okay, wow.
We're doing this for ages, which is kind of amazing. We're a staple now, so we're here all the time. So every Thursday night now for the rest of your lives, you have the opportunity to listen to me and Russ, which is kind of good. Enjoy it. It's only going to get better. So over the last 8 weeks, we focused on growing and producing cannabinoids for the UK market. And we've had, growers from America and farms from America. We've had farms from Europe. We had
Kentucky,
investments.
Guy from Kentucky.
We had a dude from Kentucky. Chris Stubbs. He was cool. He was incredible. We've had Ed Hambidge from Ireland. We had our favorite, Jamie Bartley, our boy Jamie, who came in and how to build a house from hemp. Over the last few weeks, we had
unbelievable episode. Incredible.
We had Zeus last week from CBD Brothers, who was incredible as well. Proper legend in this industry. And, loads of other people. If I've forgotten anyone, I'm really sorry. But I mean, all of you guys over the last 8 weeks, you've all been incredible. The GLO boys, the Grow Lab Organics boys who are doing stuff on the Isle of Man. I mean, like an incredible bunch of you. So thank you so much to all of our growers and everyone who's participated. This week, we got something slightly different. So this week, we've got another grower, someone else who's got another plan to grow and produce cannabinoids for the UK market. but he's based in Colombia. So they're an English company, but as opposed to deciding to grow in England or to grow in Europe or to grow in America, like majority of the people in this world, they decided to jump on the Colombian bandwagon. Now, I don't know if you remember, maybe 15 weeks ago, we had Dr. Sandra Carrillo, who came on the show.
Of course.
So Dr. Carrillo, based in that part of the world, was talking about the emerging, growing economy of cannabis in Colombia. So I just thought it'd be incredible to kind of bring on someone who's, participating in that new growing economy, who's been trying to build a farm there over the last 2 years. Licenses are now in hand and they're starting to break ground. I want to share that story. Now, I'm going to give my little introduction as usual because I love my introductions, and then we're going to move on with the show. So, right. As someone who's been in this industry for a very long time, I've seen a lot of people come and go, and I've seen a lot of companies trying to penetrate this market with aspirations of success, but they're lacking a purpose, and they're lacking an added USP, all right, a unique selling point. It's very, very easy to buy and sell cannabinoids. It's a weighable product. So you buy it for X and you sell it for Y. And as long as you can have a supplier to buy it, it's not hard to sell it. But what's hard is actually to produce cannabinoids. It's very easy to buy and sell anything, but to actually make something is very difficult. A lot of people have made mistakes in this industry. A lot of people have believed that they can farm, they can grow. Now, don't get me wrong, anyone can grow hemp, but to grow hemp, to produce extracts, is not that simple. And I'm sure, as we heard, Ed Hampage said that the amount of uptick of farmers this year compared to previous years is a lot lower because the yields they returned and the revenue and the return on their farming investment was lower than in of previous crops. There's been a massive increase in oversupply on the marketplace, which our guest today, Kevin Gallagher, will go into a bit more. And there are loads of things like this which people don't think about when you think about growing CBD. You think about CBD being extremely popular, but you don't think about the hurdles you have to jump through in order to make your business a success. Because fact of the matter is, if you go bankrupt growing cannabinoids, you're not going to be around next year and there's no longevity in your business. So there's a lot more thought which goes into it. Too many people just assume that hemp can be grown, CBD can just be extracted. It's not that simple. It's that field of dreams mentality of if you build it, they will come. It doesn't exist, and it's not real. So it's about having a bit more of a plan. So as we met from CBD Brothers last week, they had a network of people who bought their product off of them before they invested in their farm in Guernsey. As we've spoken to several other companies, they had this network of distribution before they created their increased supply. Or they started on a very, very, very small scale production. They then increased their output, and now they're manufacturing to meet their demand. There are smart ways of growing and producing. There's a smart way of growing and building up your farm to produce a cannabinoid for the end user market. And our guest this week has done that. Their plan is a lot bigger. Now, as we discussed last week, in every new emerging economic boom, there's a migration. But the problem is everyone always migrates to the same point. So back in the gold rush, everyone went with their pickaxes to try and dig up the gold. But the people who made a lot of money in the gold rush were the people selling the sieves and the pickaxes. All right. So the same thing. We all have our roles in this industry. You have this. I never thought of that. That's true. They call it Pickaxe Theory. So Pickaxe Theory is the largest, like most of the money made in the gold rush were the people who sold the pickaxes. Or you have the what's it called? John Briggs. Have you heard of John Briggs, the secure call transport company in America? So they started off as a gold transport company during gold rush. Brinks. Sorry, no, I said Briggs. Brinks, exactly. So the term riding shotgun came from Brinks, because the person who used to sit on the front of the carriage used to always have a shotgun in their hand. So the term riding shotgun is to sit in front of the carriage with a shotgun in your hand. Now we all just call it when we want front seat in the car. But I mean, there's this entire culture which built around gold mining, and a lot of the money which was made from gold mining wasn't actually from gold. Everyone in this industry believes that, I'm either going to plant hemp and make money, or I'm going to build a CBD brand and make money, but more thought needs to go into it. There's method to the madness, you could say, and there's a reason why everyone's not succeeding in this industry, and why over the last 10 years I've seen many CBD suppliers, many CBD distributors, many farms who were involved in the production of cannabinoids come and go, because the market's not as simple as, well, the market makes out it can be. Our guest today fully understands that education leads to success and innovative thinking separates you from your competition. And he also understands that consistency, accuracy, and transparency and reliability are things which the client depend on. But how are you supposed to get there? How are you supposed to create this accuracy and reliability and transparency? It's not gifted to you. It's earned. It's thought about. It's a process by which you achieve these points. They don't just appear out of nowhere. You know, there's this theory, like I'm rambling a bit, but trust me, I'm getting to a point. There's this theory that if you try and be the best at something, you know, you put your heart and soul into everything, and you don't go into the industry trying to make money. You go into the industry trying to be the best person in that industry. The chances are you're going to succeed, because your ambition is to succeed, not to win. And success and winning are two different things. Success is inner, winning is outer. You know, you win, you get applause from other people. You succeed, you feel that warmth inside of you. And I really do believe this Farm Douche is gonna. I believe they're gonna succeed, because the way they're doing things is different from everyone else, and they know how easy it is to fail in this industry. So, yeah, like without further ado, our guest today, Kevin Gallagher. You know, let's bring him out, because there's a lot more he's going to add to this story of producing cannabinoids. There's a lot more information he will add to this idea of growing in Colombia. And there's an energy which he carries. You know, I had an incredible conversation with him a few days ago, and there's an energy he carries which kind of makes you believe he's going to do something properly, because that too much thought has gone into it, and too much thought process has gone into planning it. So anyway, this is Kev. Everyone say hello to Kev.
Hi,
Kev,
Oliver.
say hello to everybody. Thank you very much for coming on the show.
Absolutely.
Let's get straight into this. How did you get involved in the industry?
We started, I have one company which supplies bottles and packaging to the cannabis industry. And we had a customer who, during a discussion about the industry and what was happening, was complaining about the quality of supply, inconsistency, not being able to make consistent product, therefore not being able to manage a brand and keep consistency of brand quality as part of it. So we thought the best way was to go from, in essence, seed to shelf. And looking at the process, I'm a farmer's son, so understanding that, and they're a brand manager and brand developer, it's a seed to shelf was the correct way to go. I had relationships in Colombia through business, and my long-term friend in Colombia said, the market is opening up, we are legalizing the growing of cannabis, we can get licenses. What do you think? So literally, myself and Robert Dainty jumped on an aeroplane and arrived in Colombia and said, what do we need to do? How do we do this? We rented a farm, rented an operation facility, and applied for the licenses within, I think we were there for 10, 12 days. We came back on the 23rd of December. So with our license applications, the business formed, and then from that, we set up the operation in the UK. And the idea was we'd set up the operation in the UK whilst we waited for the licenses. And we started to distribute raw product, bulk product to companies like Oliver's, etc., throughout Europe. And the idea behind that is that you're developing a customer base, which is understanding the product, understanding what you're developing, you're understanding what the market requirement is. And then behind that, as we would get our licenses and be able to grow, we would actually have a base in which to sell, where we'd already developed a platform. We already had revenue generation and already a known entity in the market space.
Question: Why did you choose Colombia? Because, you know, you're based in the UK. If you look around you, you've got loads of different ideas, or I mean, you've got loads of talk. You know, there's there was a lot of talk about Isle of Man, about Guernsey. There's talk about, growing in Europe. You have Eastern Europe in, Poland and Slovenia. And then you have, other areas like South Africa's opened up. And then you have America, which is a standard. What made you decide to go to Colombia, a new emerging economy with a relatively tricky past? Do you know what I mean? It's like it is a third world country. You know what I mean? It's a third world developing country.
It wouldn't be the first choice. In normal circumstances, it wouldn't be the first choice. But actually, number one, Colombia is the largest exporter of flowers to America. Therefore, there's a massive capability of people where they're pruning flowers, developing flowers, and growing plants at a really high level. So there's a skill base there to grow good quality products, not mass produced farm product like in America and things like that. And the most important factor is the weather. The weather there, you get 12 to 13 hours of sunlight throughout the year. Therefore, you can plant.
Can you imagine that, Ross? Can we just pause for 1 second?
No, I'm just.
All right, fine.
Do you know what?
As three people who live in England who haven't seen sunlight in about 3 years. Okay.
I know, Kevin. The moment you said that, I thought I'm on the next plane. I thought, man, that's just great.
Colombia's actually not a bad idea, is it?
So it's a very good idea for things like that. So
anyway,
so basically, you've got the climate. It's tropical. It's a tropical, so humid climate, so it's good for growing, and better than Bournemouth, of course. And you can grow all year round. So there's certain dynamics which, if we look at financial aspect, if you're growing in America, you're growing in Europe, the maximum amount of crops you will get is 2 per year. So you have to grow in bulk, take a lot of acreage, and therefore the cost and acreage requirement to yield is different to Colombia, because in Colombia you can grow. If you're clever, you can get 4 crops. But if you said 3.5 crops per year, you can get 3.5 crops per year. But it isn't 3.5 crops per year. If you segment your land, you can plant every week or every 2 weeks, and then harvest over that time frame every 2 weeks. So the size of plant you require for extraction is smaller, but you're going to get the same yield out of your farm as somebody that is growing a larger area, and like in Europe and in America, where you harvest once per year. So cash flow is better. Your investment is lower because the size of equipment you require is smaller, and you can manage that. So if you're extracting, you can extract smaller batches. You can make extracting smaller batches means you can make more bespoke products, which then enter into several markets. So you have the cannabis market, and also we have a THC license, so you can enter the medical market. So operating in smaller batches and smaller runs, you can make very bespoke products to specific markets where there is a premium over mass-produced bottom of the market product.
So let me ask you.
That's the key.
Let me ask you a question. So I'm going to use Jamie Bartley as an example. Okay, Jamie Bartley, one of our favorite hemp experts, probably our hemp expert. Okay, we love Jamie. So Jamie basically was talking about the limitations around UK-based farmers in regards to what they can do with their crop. So even if you want to produce hemp for industrial application, there's licensing upon licensing upon licensing. Like, there is no free reign farming economy when it comes to producing hemp as a crop. In Colombia, are you guys restricted by similar laws, as in if you want to grow 15 types of genetic, are you allowed to do that? Do you understand what I mean? Like is there
the restrictions are you have to have specific licenses. So you don't just get one license. You get a license to develop seed. So you can develop seeds, and you're allocated so many developments. So you can develop specific seeds, and that gives you a seed development and grow license. Then you have a license for growing. You have a license for extraction. And then you have a license for export and sale. So currently, from Colombia, you can only export extracted product. You cannot export flour. There's legislation being passed now to export flower so that they can move that into the medical market and sell flower into the medical market as well as extractive products. So there are companies out there making and selling medical products. And then there's also, but not so much retail CBD, yeah? And then there is the market for flower, which we believe will be the next growth area. Colombia restricted that and are now looking at changing that. But that would also tie in with the fact that they're also looking at making cannabis legal in Colombia, following on from the likes of Mexico. So it's all controlled.
Just like
and
Carrillo
regulated.
said, like Dr. Carrillo said, they're looking to expand the medical market out a lot more there, and they're looking to encourage a lot more of a, call it, synchronization with the United States of America in terms of their, more recent drug laws, you could call it. It's that sort of like a paralleled economy they're trying to create out there, which is I assume 2 years ago when you guys what's it called, when you guys first started knocking on Colombian doors, give me a license, okay, when you first started doing that, I'm sure that this was kind of in the back of your minds that this is something you were fingers crossing for, right?
Correct. I mean, lots of people invested in Colombia. There's been a lot of investment in some companies, like Pharmacello's probably the biggest and got the worst reputation, having had over $230 million of investments, and in 5 years being one of the first licensees, in 5 years having generated no profits and no real revenue, and most of the money has been lost.
A lot of cannabis companies do this, Russ. In this sector right now, it's so easy to convince someone that you are worth $100 million. I mean, it's just like the game. You get a really good deck. You get a good deck, a good lawyer, a good broker, and boom, they can put together that package, which makes you look like look at some of the IPOs in the UK recently. I mean, I'm looking, I'm thinking, what do they actually do? They've just sold for 150 million. Like, what do they do?
It's all the .com boom again.
I wish I knew how they were doing it.
In some ways it is. And I think another issue is, from our standpoint, we worked on the point of honesty. So when we first started in Colombia, we had lots of people, oh, you're going to do cannabis? Yeah, we'll invest, etc., etc. We said, no, we aren't going to take any investment until we get our license. We need investment to grow the businesses and to expand how we want to expand. We need investment, absolutely. But what we said is, it's a false hope to somebody without the licenses. So we will spend our own money developing the farm, putting all the security on, paying for the licenses, paying for the rent on the farm whilst we waited for the licenses. We spent that cash. And we did that because we said, if we don't get the licenses, then we've not misled anybody. Now we've got the licenses, okay, we can take investments because we have something of value. We have a business in the UK that is distributing bulk. So we can say, here's a business in the UK that is selling product. It is known in the marketplace. We've got a customer base. We can develop from that. And then we can also develop our farm in Colombia and develop into new markets. Because medical marijuana, which everybody sees as the panacea, is great, but it is 5 to 7 years away. You can get some products in there with 1% THC, like in Germany, etc. But there's not a big market yet because medical marijuana is only beginning on the footsteps of entering the market.
I think there's something like 5,000 patients who are registered in the UK. There are 5,000 patients across 2 different clinics. We're like one of the, in a few weeks' time, we've got someone actually runs a cannabis clinic who's going to be running a show. It's going to be incredible. But I mean, we're going to kind of get a bit more of an insight into what these cannabis clinics do, but it's a very closed system. That's the problem. So you have a lot of these clinics, you have a supplier and a distributor and a prescriber all in one roof. And they kind of, it's not like there's 50,000 patients on a monthly basis who are using products which need a farm in Colombia to supply. You know, like they really are, I want to call it scatter buying, a little bit in Germany,
Yes.
a little bit in Israel, a little bit in Switzerland to meet clients' needs. You know, they're getting the Bedrocan from Holland for the epileptic kids and whatever. And everyone's kind of, you know, picking and grabbing wherever they need to grab from, as opposed to kind of having a consistent, reliable supply. The market's still very new. It's in every sense of the word. The medicinal cannabis market is very, very, very new. And to be honest with you, it's still in that teething process, because what happens is there's not the supply and the understanding of products which exist in economies like Israel or America. It's not there yet. So in order for these, you know, it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? It's not about getting the great quality cannabinoids to the UK market. It's about the UK market to have a system which understands cannabinoids and then delivering the cannabinoids to the UK market.
Yes, and you're never going to you're not going to get all 5,000 customers.
Never.
And so you're not going to make a living out of that at this point. Whereas CBD, over the counter on the shelf, is a cash flow model for the business, so you can generate cash, you can generate revenue. You're not continually putting your hand in somebody else's pocket, and then you can slowly develop medical products and enter the market and enter it in a way that is, how can we say, prudent, and not the case of, hey, I've got an idea, we're going to do this, give me $100 million, and we're going to make you really rich. We don't know when. But as long as I can get 1 million a year salary, I'm okay.
I spoke to an analyst today, Kev, and his exact words to me are, he goes, he'll make $1 million bet with me. He said, I'll put $1 million on the line, Ollie. In 10 years' time, not one of the companies who's a big company in this space today will be here tomorrow.
No.
And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, look, all of these big $150 million companies which are getting these raises and these raises, none of them will be here tomorrow because they're not based on anything. None of them are real. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some cannabis companies out there which are based on reality. For example, Taylor Mammon, Douche, they're companies which have built themselves up from nothing, who are working on the basis that if I'm going to be wasting anyone's money, it might as well be mine. And we don't have a negative inflated valuation to start with. That's half the reason these companies are worth so much, because they've spent so much money. If someone spends $500 million, guess what? They're worth $500 million because the person who put in that first $500 million wants to get their money back. That's the whole process. And it's just making me a little bit sick, because I know for a lot of people are putting their money behind cannabis companies which actually don't have legs to stand on. And it's quite worrying, because it's only going to lose faith in cannabis. You know what you're doing?
It will.
It's a worrying trend. It's a worrying trend, because the real people, like Taylor Mammon, like ourselves, like a few others, those companies, when they go to raise, obviously my idea is what we raise is far smaller and we give less away, but we have, there's our track record and there's where we want to be. And, you know, you can manage that and manage people's expectations. From that standpoint, you can manage the business. But people making these massive raises where there's no substance, where they've only got 800,000 in revenue and they value in the business at 150 million, that is false. And that will undermine real companies. The real guys that want to grow will suffer.
Yeah, there's a good point coming in from Ed Grossman. Good evening to you, Ed. Oliver, that's because, and it's aimed at both of you, that's because most pioneers fail. 90%, and Ed Grossman would know because he deals with a lot of this, 90% of pioneers do actually fail. Now, Kevin, a couple of questions, if I may. I'm finding this absolutely fascinating. Number one.
He's awesome, right? Told you it'd be good.
No, it's great. No,
I told him it would be good as well.
Every one of your guests.
I'm very shy.
Every one of your guests have been just great. And now we're being joined by Chrissy over in Spain. Hi, boys. Sorry, late. Just finished supper. Okay. Now, how big is this farm? Because you keep referring to the farm. I'm trying to get a mental image of your farm in Colombia, and I've failed completely.
Our farm is 11, 12 acres. But if you consider that to Europe, the yield we can achieve would make that equivalent to 150 acres in the USA, or in certainly 150 acres in the UK or
because
Europe.
of the weather. The weather
because
and the
of the
number of
weather,
crops, and
the amount of
you're able to.
crops, and also, more importantly, we don't have the restrictions of Europe. So in Europe, we have approved seed. The highest yield of that is about 6%. The average yield is about 3%. In Colombia, we have a seed at 19.5%. We're currently developing a seed that's 25%. So we can produce a lot more from a lot less. And we can do it on a consistent basis, which gives us acreage to yield output, which is beneficial. And on top of that, we can subcontract grow, which means you can get local farmers. They can grow. So somebody might have an hectare. He can grow an hectare for you. The idea we have, which is already being implemented by people like Clever Leaves as well, is they will grow and they'll have so many acres. And then what they will do is give their seeds, knowing what the yield will be from that plant, to outside farmers and say, this is the expected yield of that. We will pay you against that. And that is the best practice to grow the business and grow output. And
is
you
this
can do
for
that
CBD
cheaply.
or THC?
A CBD.
This
THC,
is for CBD.
Yeah,
THC is a bit more controlled, right?
Very, very controlled.
So we're going to move on to THC in a bit. I want to finish the CBD thing. I just wanted to ask you a quick question. You were talking before about the process of applying for a license, and you have to apply for a license to handle seed, a license to grow, a license to cultivate, a license to extract, a license to export, a license to sell. Was there a process in which you had to apply for these licenses? As in, did you have to start license 1, license 2, license 3, license 4, license 5, or did you have to build? I'll explain why I say this, because when we had Sativa Investments on a few weeks ago, and we had George Thomas, he was talking about how it's the field of dreams model. You almost have to build it, and then they come and give you the tick, and then you can build the next level, and they come and give you the tick, and then you build the next level, they come and give you a tick. They then monitor you for 6 months, and if you don't mess around, they'll give you another tick, and then you all of these ticks enable you to kind of build up and build up and build up until you're finally at the structure which enables you to do what you want to do, or what they allow you to do. In Colombia, were you like kind of under the same rule of thumb where you were basically having to satisfy the needs of your caseworker, you could say?
Yes. So you have to apply. We applied for all the licenses. You don't need to apply for all of them. You could apply just for grow. You could apply just for seed, extraction, etc. We applied for all because we wanted to control seed to extracted product. So it was and export. So it was
so jealous.
Apply for all of them.
So jealous.
And so then jealous. What we did is you have to follow a path, and so we have to have the farm, we have to have the facility, and then you have to lay out your plans. This is your extraction room. This is your drying room, etc., etc. On the farm, this is our grow area. This is our security, and these are our security measures. Then you're inspected. So you're not just inspected. You're inspected by the Ministry of Justice. You're inspected by the police for security, and then you're inspected by the health officials as well, because it comes under. It's not just under one. It's not one specific area. Each one of them have to accept you. So they have to say, yes, your security is correct. You have to prove that if there's anything happening on your farm. So, for example, somebody thinks, hey, there's some cannabis going there. I'm going to go and rob it. How long can you get a response? You've got to have 24-hour security. Everything has to be in place for that. So if you can imagine this in the UK and what the cost would be, we have 12 and a half acre farm, and we have a 3-meter high fence all the way around it, which is then razor wire above it, electrified, and the concrete, it's concreted, a meter deep, all the way around.
I bet you I can still break in. I bet you I can. All right, you give me a pair of pliers or Rambo's knife, and trust me, I'll be like a dog on that stand. I will find a way to get in with a.
No, hang on a minute. I've got the 3-meter high. You got razor wire on top. Explain the concrete so that people can't burrow underneath. Is that the idea?
Can't burrow underneath. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Got it.
So basically, you've got to build that. But imagine doing that round 12 acres.
Yeah.
And then you've got to put your area in. You've got your reception area, your security area. Then you've got to have cameras, so it's got to be fully cameraed.
It's about 6 kilometers of of fence.
Yes.
That's
And
incredible.
imagine you're digging down a meter.
It's the fence halfway from my house to the city of London. Literally, that's how long the fence is. From my I'm 12 miles away from the city. So I mean, literally halfway between me and the city. So me to Angel is me building a fence all the way to Angel Islington.
Yeah. So that gives you an idea. We've already done all of that. Yeah.
Incredible.
You have to do that to get passed off for the license. If you haven't got the security in place and they can't see that you're active, then they won't give it you. Simple as.
Kevin, quick question. You were talking before about the government and the health and the police. I'm only bringing this up because Alex Frey, when he was talking about the Isle of Man, was talking about this, about how he's dealing with all these different organizations who think differently. Do they all think differently in Colombia? And how hard is it to get through all of this in a second language as well? The fact that you're not even dealing with the same, sounds messed up, you're not even dealing with people who are on a cultural level with you or a verbal level with you. Was it like just... I can't imagine.
It's extremely difficult, and there's nuances in Colombia that we won't understand. So, for example, the civil service, every year at Christmas, everybody gets fired. And they all get fired.
I love this. I love this.
So what actually happens is, let's say I'm dealing with the Ministry of Justice Department and Miguel's my contact. As of January, he isn't my contact anymore because he's now working for the Ministry of Transport, doing roads. And the idea behind this is that there isn't corruption. So to avoid corruption, that you can't have the relationship, then they sack everybody. But then somebody that comes in has got to learn exactly where you are. So you can imagine now you've gone so far down the line with Miguel, and you say, right, Miguel, can I have that signature? Sorry, it's not Miguel now, it's Sandra. Okay, what do I do now? Let me read your file. Let me understand.
Get back to you.
I'll get back to you. That's 3 months. Yeah. So when we set off for the license, if you can imagine, I mean, we are disappointed in a way with Colombia because of this, very frustrated. They laid out a roadmap for you to get the license, which was 6 months. So we thought, great, we're investing. By the middle of 2019, we will have our licenses. We will start to grow. We'll have product before novel food, etc., etc. Everything will be fantastic. Isn't this wonderful? Sadly, that was not the case, and not the case for many people that set off to get licenses, because the roadmap and the path, they didn't know what they were doing. They were changing the regulation as they were moving along. And so the goalposts were moving as they tweak things. And they didn't have the manpower for the amount of people that applied for licenses. So it's, wait a minute, we've got 10 staff and actually we need 100 staff, a bit like the FSA are now with novel foods. So the process took nearly 2 years to get the licenses. So if you can imagine, I'm currently rewriting the business plan because we should have been growing 18 months ago, and we're not. We're now at the point where, A, we've had COVID, which is whatever you put in the business plan is meaningless. And B, it's right, we're actually at this point now, and we're starting from here. And so there are some frustrations, but overall, I think in the longer term, it will be one of the best areas and the best development areas, because you're allowed to develop seed, you're allowed to grow and test, you're allowed to do so many things that are restricted elsewhere, because they say these are your guidelines, these are your markers, you can only do this. And this is the regulated seed here. You can take one of these approved seeds. In Colombia, you can develop a seed and say, hey, I've got a seed. Oh, and look, I'm developing a seed here, and this will be good for Alzheimer's, and this will be good for this cancer. You can develop that and actually generate something that has an IP.
So one thing which I've realized about the UK, and I've heard it over again, so like a lot of the medicinal patients in the UK who are getting cannabis products from one of these new clinics. So someone like Philip Anthony Bevington, who we had on the show a few months ago, and he was talking about how he has a THC CBD drop. Okay, and it's very much a it'll be a construction. So what happens is they'll deal with, you know, CBD as a compound, they'll deal with THC as a compound, and they'll make a blend. What Kevin has the ability to do is he has the ability to create genetics which actually have that blend already in them, which creates a more, call it, well-rounded cannabis product. It's not a construction. So what happens is he has the ability to create a genetic which creates an extract which could be better off for the end user because it has the other minor cannabinoids in there as well, and he actually gets to produce something which is almost straight from the plant, perfect for the end user, which is quite cool when you get to think about it, considering so many other countries around the world, barring America, because America is the land of opportunity, which kind of restrict you. And it's kind of lovely that Colombia, at least in that opening way, is enabling you to make cannabis very personal. If you go back and also remember about what Sandra Carrillo said, she was talking about how she will meet a patient. The patient will then talk to her about her problems or their problems, and then she'll bespokely formulate a product for that end user. Colombia's made cannabis very, very, very personal. I do believe the UK is making cannabis very generic. And that is a big problem. Now, there's like what I've seen in America is in America, cannabis is very personal. In Israel, cannabis is very personal. In most medicinal systems around the world, cannabis is personal. But in the UK, it's generic. And there's something wrong there, you know, mainly
and synthetic.
And synthetic. And just
Well,
a little bit
real.
poor quality.
Speaking of synthetic, here's 2 points from Ed Grossman, and hello to you, Angela Lee, as well, and of course Chrissy Richards as well. Ed saying, by the way, you were talking about they fire everybody in the civil service and rehire them in January, and Ed says, Kevin, that's what the tax people do in the UK, which I didn't know, which is interesting. And now a question for you, Kevin, from Ed Grossman, to both of you: is there such a thing as synthetic cannabis?
Synthetic cannabinoids, yes. So individual cannabinoids, so like a CBD, will be replicated in a lab and an isomer, a genetic equivalent as opposed to a genetic identical replicant. So a genetic equivalent can be created, and when tested and when analyzed, it will show up as being similar. It does exist. However, what they found is a lot of these synthetic cannabinoids are rougher around the edges. I think it's the best way of saying it. They're less understood, they're less refined in their understanding, and there are some hidden dangers because it's what happens when you deal with something you don't understand. Now, it's very simple. If you go back to the 1980s, there was a doctor called Dr. Hoffman. I believe he was in North Carolina University or something. Now, this Dr. Hoffman created a little known drug called spice. Now, spice was created as a synthetic cannabinoid. It was created as a synthetic THC. What happened is it caused detriment. Go forward a few years, you have this compound called Marinol. Marinol was created recently in the last 5-10 years in America. It created as a anti-cancer, like an anti-cancer, like an anti-cancer negative feeling medication, as well as like it's a synthetic cannabinoid for loads of applications. But what they found was, I think 98% of users were switched from natural cannabinoids to Marinol, and 98% of users described the effects as extremely detrimental to their lives because they realize because it's not designed to do what their natural plant is designed to do. So like there is a lot more research going into it. I'll be honest with you, David Beckham's just invested like 50 million quid in a company which deals with synthetic cannabinoids. Don't buy it. That's the honest truth. I think the guy's a genius who set up the company, but I don't buy it. I don't. I'm not even going to play the game. Sorry, go on, Kev.
And another important factor is our bodies have a natural endocannabinoid system which accepts it, and that's why it is so good for us.
Our bodies produce cannabinoids.
Yeah,
our bodies produce like a CBD and a THC equivalent, which is more similar to phytocannabinoids and phytocannabinoids from plants than synthetic cannabinoids, which are invented out of thin air. So I mean, there's that as well. But go on, Kev. Sorry.
So if we look back to the early 1920s and 30s. Hemp was in so many products. It was fed to cattle as a waste from making yarn and things like that. So it was in cows, we ate the meat, etc. So the amount of cannabinoids in our system And our reception to it was far greater because obviously it was banned, and we've now had 3 or 4 generations where we've not been received. Our endocannabinoids haven't been working the same. Eventually, that with legalization, etc., it'll become more morally accepted. Our endocannabinoids will start to work again, and the benefits of cannabis and the endocannabinoids in, what is in cannabis will actually be a benefit for people. And that's the difference between synthetic and natural.
I spoke to an incredible doctor. I spoke to an incredible doctor this week. Actually, Dr. Leon Baron put me in contact with her, and she was talking about this. She was talking about the endocannabinoid system, and she was like, "It's very, very strange how people don't want to admit it." I was like, "What do you mean?" She goes, "We have this endocannabinoid system. Our bodies produce cannabinoids. They are there. It is not a suggestion. It is not theoretical. It is facts that these cannabinoids flood us. When you do an analysis on someone who has most issues, okay, and you actually test their body, all right, there is something not working correctly. When you give them cannabinoids, their bodies start working correctly and they feel better." She says, like, you see it over and over again. The cannabinoids are there to start with. When there are problems in the body, obviously cannabinoids are not there. When you reintroduce cannabinoids to the body, problems disappear. And she was going on about how it's so in your face. Why don't people just realize? And I kind of loved it because I was like, when does a doctor ever say that? When does a doctor ever turn around and be like, "How blind are you? Why can't you see this?" And it's incredible. Like, but there is this new wave of education coming out, and there's a whole bunch of new doctors and a whole bunch of new educators. And I spoke to some 25-year-old kid who's just graduated from Nottingham, and he was taught about the endocannabinoid system by his doctor. He was taught about it, and I'm like, that's incredible. They're actually teaching us. Yeah, she's got in a lot of trouble, but she basically created this syllabus within our syllabus to teach us about the endocannabinoid system, but she got in trouble for it. But she's still doing it because she knows that everyone needs to know this. There's like a whole new wave of information coming out there, and I'm just not a fan of synthetics. I never really have been. I never really will be. I'm a pro-plant dude. That's just me. I believe that God put cannabis on the face of the earth for a reason, for us to use it, not for us to bastardize it, imitate it, fake it, and then pretend that that's better, because man-made stuff is always better than stuff which was put here by the powers that be, right?
There's also another factor, and that is that cannabis actually is quite a cheap product. It isn't a cheap product when a pharmaceutical company makes something synthetic, which they patent, and say, "This is in my drug, and this is going to do this, and here's the cost of that." So what you can do, and the financials of real cannabis, you can produce relatively low-cost medication. Okay, it will be higher when you're developing specific cannabinoids for specific cancers, but it will still be cheaper than synthetics, and it's natural to us. So, and that's why CBD, as Oliver and ourselves know, CBD as a product, there is a good uptake on good natural products, because once people start taking it, they see the benefits of it. That's why this market is growing, and it is the future, and there is a big future for it, as long as we're allowed to market product and develop product, which is being stifled by, in my opinion, the novel foods.
So I want to talk about it. We've got 10 minutes left, Kev. What would you rather talk about? THC in Colombia or novel food?
We can talk about both. THC in Colombia is purely medical based, so it's probably limited to the customer, to the people watching, because they mainly be, I think, cannabis, CBD based. If we talked about novel food, then we can talk about the issues that we're going to encounter throughout Europe, and what all brands are going to encounter as a difficulty trying to create a brand and be a brand. So there's different areas. So I'll let you take the choice.
Go on, then let's talk about the CBD market. I prefer it. Fine. So you mentioned something interesting when we were on the phone. When we were on the phone, we were talking about this. I actually kind of want to bring this back. So so the aim is to produce cannabinoids in Colombia. And you're currently rewriting your business plan. Now, when you wrote your business plan 18 months ago, the price of CBD was very different to the price now. So therefore, I assume the amount of output of your farm in Colombia, you would have made, $1 million a harvest. And based on today's price, you will make half that, or if not a third of that. How's how's the massive reduction in the price of cannabinoids affected the business plan? And why do you think there's been such a, I've got my opinions, but why do you think there's been such a massive reduction in the price of CBD on the UK market as a bulk ingredient?
It's not only in the UK market. So if we look at it, the main producer of cannabis is hemp is America. There's an absolute massive oversupply, and in Europe there's an oversupply. So we only need to look at the amount of biomass that is available, and if we look at the price that the biomass was when it was $3, $4, $5 a pound. So what actually happened, if we looked at the real market, Kentucky's a good example. People were producing tobacco. They then move out of tobacco because it's a low value market, because they get $5 a kilo, $10 a kilo. It's nothing for tobacco leaf in reality. And so we can grow cannabis and we can get so many kilos per acre. Look at the yield, it's 5 times what we're going to get from tobacco. So great, we're going to move into that. Hundreds of thousands of acres were planted, and the market wasn't there and isn't there for the amount of volume that was produced. So if we look at it and we say, if you think of Canopy Grow, they've got the best example. They have got 12 months worth of cannabis for the entire Canadian market in stock. And
wow.
so
could you just say that again, Kevin? Would you mind?
So they've got 12 months worth of cannabis for the entire, which is matching the entire consumption of Canada for 1 year in stock. Yeah. So that's just one company.
Now,
so
bear in mind, farms have got bigger. Production and output has increased. So this is not with the world stopping. So this is, as the world's getting bigger, there is already a 12-month backlog of product which is not being sold.
In one
and that's not even calculating what's in the ground.
Company. But the point that Kevin's making is that's just the one
company. And there's thousands of companies. So, I mean, there's probably thousands of years worth of oversupply.
Yeah.
Thousands.
So what's going to happen?
Kevin, stupid question from me, but I always like to say I'm the passenger here trying to learn. Does it go off?
It does degenerate depending how you keep it. If you dry it, etc., it won't degenerate as fast. But if you've extracted it, then you've more shelf life. So,
but shelf life is still limited.
Yes, but if you extract it, you've got to sell it within a certain time, and also you've got the cost of extraction. So you're investing money in a product that is going to lose its strength and marketability, and you also won't have consistency, because what was done in stock 1 month and what is today is 2 totally different qualities. Yeah, as an example, it might not be so bad, but over time it will be. But the point is now that the price has fallen so high, so far, as Oliver was saying. If you think of people selling seeds, they were selling seeds to maybe 150, 200 farms, and they're now selling to 40 or 50 farms, because those farmers, at the end of the day, what is a farmer? He's a commodity producer. He's only interested in what's going to make him money. And if that's not hemp, he won't grow hemp. And that's what's happening now. So this year, there will be a reduction. Next year, there'll be a further reduction. And all this stock is being dumped. There's several other points. Companies have raised 30, 40, 50 million dollars on the dream of selling cannabis. And as Oliver said, we're going to sell cannabis at $3,000 a kilo.
I'm going to sell cannabis for $1,000 a pound. You know, they'll be like, yeah, but how? Yeah. You know, like it doesn't make sense. The number exactly. Like, it only works that way if you can kind of own your supply chain. And you know, I understand but it just the math doesn't add up. It just doesn't add up.
And if you think now we sell a kilo of isolate for 450 quid. So 3 years ago it was
7,000, and 5 years ago was 50.
Correct. So
I used to buy CBD for £50,000 a kilo, and now I pay about 400 quid.
£50,000 to 450 quid.
Less than 450 quid.
Yeah.
I'm staggered.
I've heard rumours.
By the drastic economics of this industry. It's extraordinary.
Russ, I've heard rumours that if you're buying in bulk, so you're buying 1,000 kilos plus at a time, you can buy it for $200 a kilo.
Yes. And,
talking
what's
about
actually
0.2%, 0.2% of the. I feel sick when I think of what I used to spend on this stuff.
yeah. So, and if you think of it like this, though, where's somebody going to sell 1,000 kilos? Because the market is still growing. It's not there. The market, if you look at the UK market, the entire UK market would be no more than 2,000 kilos in the year. So, you know, where is all this product going to go? It's not what people think. And that's, again, part of our reason that we are selling bulk products. We can manufacture to match that bulk product. Yeah. And
it's an amazing thing. Ed's made a great point. He says, Kevin, you're saying that there's more cannabis available in Canada than there is COVID vaccine. Blimey.
That's so
Which
true.
is, I mean, you know.
Yeah, it's sad, isn't it?
It's an extraordinary point.
And so
well
there's
done, Ed, for
total oversupply, driving the price down. Eventually, across Europe, people will stop growing because they think they're going to make so much. They've done all their business plans from 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when the price was high. You know, I remember sitting with a company in Colombia, and they were saying, well, we're going to sell our EU GMP isolate for $3,500. And we were sat opposite them, and I said to the guy, listen, we are already paying half of that. So that's not going to happen. And EU GMP and GMP, there's a $25 to $35 up cost in processing it. So how do you get another $2,000 extra? It's not going to happen.
Tell me something, because I'm really curious, because it's a fascinating industry. How did he take that? He's sitting opposite you. He's built his whole business plan on doing this.
They're not mates anymore, put it that way.
Well,
I guess
they're not pals, but
yeah, they've raised 30 odd million, and they keep having to raise cash to fund their growth because they don't have real revenue.
You see, if I put it into simplistic terms, if I was like, say, starting a car company, which I wouldn't, but supposing I did, right? And I raise all this money, I say, and I'm going to sell my car for 3 million quid. And they go, to me, it sounds like, okay,
but you're selling a Fiat Punto, mate.
But you're saying
$12,000.
You can buy a car for 12 grand. Oh yeah, but I'm going to sell my car for 3 million. I'm going to mass produce it. But you're not. You're raving mad. This is never going to happen.
What it's them turning around and saying, I've got a cure for a headache. All right. And it's this little thing called ibuprofen. And I'm going to sell it for £600 a packet. But actually, you come to the math, and ibuprofen is 50p for a pack of 15 tablets.
That's right.
Because that's what it should be worth. But you've still got someone out there who's going to reinvent it and think he can get £1,000 a pack. Do you know what I mean? And that's
I get it exactly now.
Kevin messed up.
Kevin's
incredible, right?
Kevin has set this out really, really, because I hadn't seen this in the 26 weeks that we've been doing this, and I've been, saying to my pals, "Wow, well, if I had a lot of money, this is an industry I'd get involved with because it's really the people coming on the show are fantastic."
I always tell people, don't invest in this industry. Please don't invest. You know how many people have been burnt along the way?
You can still make money in the industry. You can still make money in the industry, but if you know the industry, understand it, and don't just think you're going to make a quick buck by, some people creating brands come and go, and they have no substance behind them. Eventually somebody will look, it's like being number one. Somebody becomes number one later. You're always fighting. The point is, you've got to find a space, manage that space, and manage the expectations of that space. And a lot of people have made false promises, have taken a lot of money, and still doing so. But eventually there'll be the people like ourselves, like Oliver, like a few others, that are honest out there, delivering on what we've said, and we are the guys that will actually end up growing in the market space, and
it's
the other guys will fall by the way.
It's about knowing your role. So I know, like I mentioned this over again, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a farmer, I'm not a grower, I'm just a dude who makes products. I know where I fit into this world. Kevin could have very easily gone and went to war with Europe. He wouldn't have done anything. The fact that he realized where he'll be able to add value and do something, and the fact that he's built a distribution network to be able to fund his business and then be able to send traffic from his business. We all have our place in this industry. And, you know, I think it's kind of incredible, you know, like Kevin proves exactly why he's going to succeed. I've got no misconceptions. He's going to do very well because the way the farm's been built, it's been built logically. You know, there's logic to the way Kevin's works.
There's logic and there's substance and there's proper grown-up thinking where all the lines have been dotted together, which makes such a difference. I can't believe we're out of time. Kevin Gallagher, you've been a fantastic guest. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. All of us at Men's Radio Station wish you the very, very best, especially in Colombia. So until we meet again, same time next week, stay safe. Bye.
Thank you very much.
God bless you, Kev.
All the best.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Oliver.